A physicist happened to discover a dark-colored block accompanied by a strange note. The block once belonged to Nazi Germany's nuclear reactor project. It is one of 664 uranium cubes produced by scientists under Hitler during their pursuit of nuclear dominance. After the war, all of these cubes mysteriously disappeared. But now, some of them are beginning to quietly resurface. August 2013, Maryland. On a hot, humid afternoon, physicist Timothy Koeth had just wrapped up a jog when his phone rang. The name was familiar. The voice wasn't urgent, quiet, meet me in the parking lot. Now, Koeth arrived to find his friend waiting beside a running car. No greetings. The trunk opened. Inside was a worn, brown satchel. From it, his friend pulled out a strange object, about 2 inches wide, wrapped in paper towels. It looked like a paperweight. But the moment Koeth held it, he felt its abnormal weight and cold. A note came with it, typed in ransom-style letters, taken from Germany from the nuclear reactor Hitler tried to build. Gift of Neininger. Koeth immediately recognized the name, Robert D. Neininger, a Manhattan Project metallurgist and early uranium expert. If the note was real, and the cube authentic, he was holding a piece of Nazi Germany's nuclear ambitions. In that moment, Koeth recalled in a 2024 interview with Science History Today, "I wasn't holding uranium. I was holding a question that had never been answered. What happened to the Nazi uranium cubes?" That question launched a 10-year investigation. Koeth didn't just want to identify the cube, he wanted to find the others and understand how they vanished. By 2025, fewer than 20 of the original 664 uranium cubes produced by the Nazis have been confirmed in public or scientific collections, according to the U.S. Department of Energy. The rest remain unaccounted for. This cube wasn't just radioactive, it was historical. A relic from an era when the world teetered on the edge of nuclear destruction. How it crossed continents and decades to land in Koeth's hands remains a mystery. But Koeth saw the cube as more than a scientific artifact. He believed objects like it belonged in public dialogue, in classrooms and stories. He documented everything: the cube's radioactive signature, its potential path, and its ties to Nazi Germany. He teamed up with fellow researcher Miriam Heert, and together they launched what they called a treasure hunt for history's most radioactive puzzle pieces. From a trunk in a parking lot, Koeth was pulled into a mystery that reaches back over 80 years through Nazi bunkers, Allied secrecy, and the race to control atomic power. That cube was only the beginning. Timothy Koeth's discovery of the uranium cube wasn't just a scientific anomaly, it was a key to a forgotten chapter in nuclear history. To grasp its full significance, we need to step back to the crumbling edge of Nazi Germany in early 1945. Southern Germany, a small town tucked among the hills, Hagerloch. There, beneath a medieval church, behind layers of thick stone and wartime secrecy, German scientists were building something they believed could turn the tide of war. Not a bomb, but an experimental nuclear reactor. Leading the effort was Werner Heisenberg, known globally for the uncertainty principle, but within Nazi Germany he was the face of the Uranium Club, Hitler's nuclear program. Inside the underground lab, they constructed a device that looked more like surreal art than science. Suspended like a chandelier were 664 solid cubes of natural uranium, each measuring about 2 inches across and weighing roughly 5 pounds. These weren't ornaments. Each cube was part of a precise lattice meant to be submerged in heavy water, a modified form of water used to slow neutrons and trigger a nuclear chain reaction. Their aim was chilling, trigger a sustained reaction that would unlock atomic energy, and eventually yield enough material for a nuclear weapon. According to the most recent declassified documents from the United States Department of Energy, Hagerloch was home to the most advanced nuclear reactor Nazi Germany ever assembled. But it was never completed. The reaction never reached critical mass. So what went wrong? First, they ran out of heavy water. A vital shipment had been destroyed in one of the most daring sabotage missions of the war, Operation Gunnerside, carried out by Norwegian resistance fighters in 1943. Second, their uranium was not enriched. Natural uranium is over 99% non-fissile. Without isotope separation technology, they couldn't extract the uranium-235 needed for a bomb. And third, their program was fractured from within. Internal power struggles, limited funding, and the expulsion of Jewish scientists, many of whom escaped to the Allied side, left the Nazi nuclear effort fatally weakened. Yet the physical remains of that failed ambition still exist. In the Hagerlock lab today, visitors can still see the alcove where the reactor once stood. The holes were drilled through the stone to carry electrical cables. The faint marks of radiation etched into the surrounding rock. This wasn't theoretical. It wasn't a myth. And the uranium cube in Timothy Coath's hands? It came from this very place. The uranium cubes buried beneath that German church didn't just appear by chance. They were the product of a scientific breakthrough that, just a few years earlier, was considered impossible. And it didn't begin in a bunker or a military lab, but in a Berlin chemistry institute, and a letter sent during a cold, tense winter. It began in December of 1938. Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann, two German chemists at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, were conducting neutron bombardment experiments on uranium. They expected to produce heavier elements. Instead, they found something they couldn't explain, barium, which was far lighter. This result defied known chemistry. Something inside the uranium had split apart. Baffled, Hahn wrote to his former colleague and close friend, Lise Meitner. She was an Austrian physicist and a Jewish woman who had recently fled Nazi Germany for Sweden. During the Christmas holiday, while walking through snowy woods with her nephew, physicist Otto Frisch, Meitner unraveled the puzzle. Using chalk and calculations drawn in the snow, they realized what had truly occurred. The uranium nucleus had undergone fission. It had split, not chemically, but at the nuclear level, releasing an enormous burst of energy. Applying Einstein's equation, energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, Meitner and Frisch calculated that even a tiny loss of mass during fission could unleash the explosive power of several tons of TNT. Just 1 gram of uranium, split correctly, could release more energy than most artillery shells used in the war. In January of 1939, Meitner and Frisch published their findings. At first, it created only a ripple. But that ripple became a shockwave. Physicist Niels Bohr carried the news to the United States. Within weeks, laboratories across Europe and America confirmed the discovery. From that point forward, physics was no longer just a tool to understand the universe. It had become a question of who would control it or unleash it. The discovery of nuclear fission changed the course of modern history. In the hands of the Allied powers, it could power cities. But in the hands of Nazi Germany, it could end civilizations. And by early 1939, one question haunted scientists everywhere. Who would be the first to turn fission into a weapon? And for many, the most frightening answer was Hitler's Germany. Before we continue, I have a special 10-second request for all of you listening. If you can help me in any way, just press the notification bell and hit that subscribe button. It means the world. It really supports this channel. And if you do that for me, I promise my team and I will do everything we can to make this show even better for you. Deal? The discovery of nuclear fission changed everything. But what truly set the world in motion was fear. Fear that Nazi Germany, armed with ambition and scientific talent, might be the first to weaponize it. In March of 1939, just 3 months after fission was confirmed, physicist Leo Szilard began raising the alarm. A Jewish refugee who had escaped fascist Europe, Szilard understood the stakes. He feared Germany could turn uranium into a weapon. To be heard, he partnered with Albert Einstein. Together, they composed a letter to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, now known as the Einstein-Szilard letter. Their message: Germany may be developing an atomic bomb. The United States must act immediately. Roosevelt received the letter in October, just weeks after Germany invaded Poland. Within days, he approved the Advisory Committee on Uranium, laying the groundwork for the Manhattan Project. That project would grow into the largest and most secretive scientific operation in American history, eventually costing more than $2 billion, to over $34 billion today, adjusted for inflation. At the same time, Britain quietly launched its nuclear effort, tube alloys, small, underfunded, but vital. Both programs were led in part by refugee scientists who had fled the Nazi regime. Germany had a head start. It had physicists like Werner Heisenberg, access to uranium mines in Czechoslovakia, and control over key resources. But its program was flawed, hampered by poor coordination, lack of funding, and the expulsion of top Jewish scientists. By 1942, the United States had begun full-scale uranium enrichment. Germany hadn't even built a working reactor. Still, no one knew how close Hitler might be. And that uncertainty was enough to drive the Allies harder. Because if Nazi Germany had reached the bomb first, the world would have changed forever. The Allies feared Adolf Hitler might win the nuclear race. But inside Nazi Germany's secret labs, the truth was far more fractured. In the final months of World War II, Germany's last attempt at nuclear success unfolded beneath a church in Hagerloch, a quiet town in southern Germany. There, physicist Werner Heisenberg led a final push to activate a working nuclear reactor. The design was striking: 664 uranium cubes, each 2 inches wide, suspended in barrels of heavy water. The goal? Slow neutrons sustain a chain reaction and unlock the power of the atom. But the reactor failed. It never reached critical mass. Historians and scientists now point to 3 key reasons. First, Operation Gunnerside. In 1943, Norwegian resistance fighters sabotaged the Vemork plant in Nazi-occupied Norway, the main source of Germany's heavy water. They destroyed key infrastructure and escaped into the mountains. Later Allied attacks, including the sinking of a ferry loaded with heavy water, collapsed the supply chain. Norway's defense ministry still ranks the mission among Europe's most impactful wartime operations. Second, flawed strategy. Unlike the Manhattan Project, Germany focused on reactor theory, not enrichment. Heisenberg and his team underestimated how much uranium-235 was needed for a bomb, and how difficult it was to isolate it. Third, Nazi interference. Funding was inconsistent, leadership lacked technical understanding, and anti-Semitic purges had driven out many of Germany's best physicists. Germany failed to build a weapon, but the fear that they might never faded. Allied intelligence had limited visibility into Nazi progress. The discovery of those uranium cubes, hanging underground in Hagerloch, sent chills through military command. That fear drove the Manhattan Project. That fear shaped global nuclear policy for decades. Do you think the Nazi bomb was doomed from the start, or was it just a matter of time and resources? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear your take on one of DOE's most terrifying near misses. By early 1945, Germany's nuclear program was collapsing. But the uranium cubes, the scientists, and the research documents hadn't disappeared. The Allies knew they had to act fast before the Soviets did. Following close behind the front lines was a covert team not with weapons but with Geiger counters. This was Operation Alsos, a classified mission under the Manhattan Project. Its objective: locate and dismantle Nazi Germany's atomic efforts. named after the Greek word for grove, a nod to General Leslie Groves, head of the Manhattan Project. The ALSOS team included soldiers, physicists, and intelligence agents. It was led by Dutch-American quantum theorist Samuel Goudsmit. The mission soon became a race, not just against time, but against the Soviet Union, which was rapidly advancing into German territory with its own agenda to seize Nazi technology. In April of 1945, ALSOS teams reached Hegerlach, a small town in southern Germany. Locals directed them to a church, recently guarded and sealed by Nazi forces. Below it, they found Germany's most advanced nuclear setup. Inside a hidden chamber, arranged like a metallic chandelier, hung 664 uranium cubes, each roughly 2 inches wide and weighing 5 pounds, while submerged in heavy water. It was a clear attempt at a nuclear reactor, though it had never gone critical. The ALSOS team confiscated the materials, dismantled the reactor, and arrested leading Nazi scientists, including Werner Heisenberg and Kurt Diebner. They were sent to Britain under Operation Epsilon, where their conversations were secretly recorded to gauge just how close they had come. According to declassified U.S. Army records, reviewed in 2025 by the Department of Energy, the uranium haul totaled over 3,300 pounds, enough to raise lasting security concerns. But not all of the uranium cubes were tracked. Some went to American labs. Others are going to universities or military contractors. A few disappeared with no records. As of 2025, only 15 to 20 cubes have been located. The rest remain unaccounted for. In 1945, Allied troops uncovered 664 uranium cubes beneath a church in Hegerlach, Germany, part of Nazi Germany's failed nuclear project. For decades, the story was considered closed. But then the cubes started resurfacing. Some turned up in labs, museum storage, and even listed online. That's when physicist Timothy Koeth received one, wrapped in paper towels, with a typed note taken from Germany from the nuclear reactor Hitler tried to build. Gift of Neininger. Koeth knew the metal was anything but ordinary. He partnered with Dr. Miriam Heert, a physicist and materials expert from the University of Maryland, to investigate. Their goal was clear: track the missing uranium cubes and determine how many remained. First, they verified the cube's authenticity. Using gamma spectroscopy, isotope analysis, and X-ray fluorescence, they confirmed it matched uranium processed in Nazi Germany between 1943 and 1944. There's a 99% chance this cube came from the Hegerlach reactor, Heert reported in a 2024 article for Nature Physics Review. With proof in hand, they launched a broader search, reaching out to labs, collectors, and museums across the United States and Europe. One cube was found in a Los Alamos radiation cabinet. Another sat mislabeled in a university storage room. Several were missing records entirely. At least one was posted on eBay as a metal paperweight. These aren't weapons, Heert explained in Physics Today. But they're the first step, and they remind us how close we came to something far worse. Their mission is about more than curiosity. It's about nuclear accountability and the silent threats still hidden in our history. By early 2025, physicists Timothy Koeth and Miriam Heert had confirmed fewer than 20 of the original 664 uranium cubes from Nazi Germany's failed nuclear program. That leaves more than 600 still missing. And that's what alarms today's nuclear security experts. Natural uranium isn't explosive by itself, but it's the raw material that can be enriched into weapons-grade fuel. With the right equipment, centrifuges, or chemical processes, it becomes a potential threat. Since 2010, the agency has tracked at least 18 incidents of unauthorized uranium trafficking, some linked to Eastern Europe and North Africa. But experts warn the more immediate danger isn't a nuclear bomb. It's a dirty bomb. A radiological dispersal device doesn't trigger a nuclear blast. But by spreading radioactive material with conventional explosives, it can contaminate cities, create chaos, and paralyze infrastructure. According to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's 2024 threat assessment, radiological terrorism is one of the top emerging risks, particularly in urban areas with limited radiation monitoring. What's more troubling? There's no global registry for these cubes, no official record of where most ended up. Some are likely mislabeled in university storage rooms. Others may be held in private collections. And a few could be missing entirely. They could be sitting in someone's basement or listed online as a novelty item, Heert warns. That's not fiction. That's an accountability gap. Created during a war that ended over 80 years ago, these uranium cubes now represent a different kind of danger. They're no longer just relics of a failed Nazi dream. They're loose threads in a global nuclear safety net. The uranium cubes never triggered a nuclear blast. They never powered a functioning reactor. But the fear they generated helped ignite the atomic age. Hitler's nuclear program failed. The reactor never reached critical mass. Germany never came close to building a bomb. Yet it wasn't the reality that changed history, it was the possibility. That fear launched the Manhattan Project, a secret American effort involving more than 130,000 people and costing the equivalent of $34 billion today. It produced the world's first atomic bombs, tested in the deserts of New Mexico and dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. The results were devastating. Tens of thousands were killed instantly, entire cities obliterated. And the modern world forever changed. To Koeth and many others, the cubes represent more than Nazi failure. They represent how fear alone reshaped global policy, science, and warfare. They were the unspoken spark behind the arms race. Today, the Cold War is over, but nuclear risk hasn't vanished. As of 2025, more than 13,000 nuclear weapons still exist worldwide. And unsecured radioactive materials, including uranium, continue to surface in labs, basements, and private collections. These cubes may no longer pose a direct threat, but they still radiate consequences. They were forged in secrecy, buried in fear, and forgotten by history. But their legacy still shapes the world we live in, not for what they did, but for what we believe they could do. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that appears on your screen right now. I hope you'll love this content. Comment below about the next topic you'd like to see featured on our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.